David Pastrnak is a world champion bronze medalist, and Brad Marchand went under the knife. We're going to talk about all this and more on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I am your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B, as well as take a look around the NHL. Today is Monday, May 30th. Happy Memorial Day to all of you in America. And this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins a daily listen. The podcast is free and available wherever you get podcasts. We're also on YouTube, so you can catch the podcast in video form. Please do subscribe, audio and video, rate and review if you can. Drop a comment in the YouTube page, and that would all be very much appreciated. If you're on Twitter and Instagram, you can find the podcast at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my dad jokes, and hockey tweets at Ian C. McLaren. I'm a lifelong Bruins fan. Been covering this team for various outlets for about 17 years, and the Bruins dropped some fairly big news on Friday evening in the form of an injury update on Brad Marchand. On May 27th, Bruins forward Brad Marchand underwent successful hip arthroscopy and a labral repair on both hips. The surgery took place in New York, and recovery time is approximately 6 months. So if you extrapolate 6 months from May 27th, you're into June, July, August, September, October, November. It's quite possible that Brad Marchand does not make his 2021-22 season debut until perhaps Thanksgiving, which would be obviously a huge loss for the Bruins and could set them back, especially if Patrice Bergeron does not return to the team. Now, when it comes to this particular injury, Tim Thomas back in 2010 had this procedure on one hip, came back, had one of the best seasons of his career, if not all time. David Pastrnak underwent the surgery a couple years ago, as did Tuukka Rask last summer, although we know that he was not able to return after complications. When it comes to labral tears in both hips, a player who had this done recently was Brayden Point of the Tampa Bay Lightning. 2019, he was 23 years old, and he had this procedure done. He described playing with the injury as having shooting pain. He said you're dealing with it, and you're just like, God, I wish I didn't have this. This is from a athletic article from Joe Smith back in 2019. Now, labral tears are pretty common among hockey players, especially because of forceful and repetitive nature of, hip movement while you're skating. The labrum is a cartilage structure that runs along the rib socket. It provides cushion and flexibility to help the hip joint. Tears are caused or can be caused by a singular hit or, more typically, repetitive motions and general wear and tear. Your hip will click, pop, lock up. There can be sharp pain when bending or rotating. And Brayden Point said he noticed a tear in his second year in the league, a couple years before getting the surgery. He scored 32 goals, played in all 82 games despite the injury. He said the biggest thing is mobility. He was pretty locked up, didn't have much range, don't feel very comfortable out there, very restrictive. You can't do what you want, can't work out and train the way you want to get stronger or faster. And after getting the surgery, he said it felt really good to get it all behind him. It's pretty remarkable that Brad Marchand, therefore, was able to score 32 goals and add 48 assists to lead the team in scoring with 80 points in 70 games this past season. He also led the team in scoring in the playoffs with 11 points in 7 playoff games against the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, I wonder about how quickly he'll be able to rebound at age 34, and from both hips having to be repaired. Again, Tuukka Rask had the surgery on one hip last summer in his mid-30s. Tried to come back, wasn't able to. Obviously, it's different movements with goaltending as opposed to skating. But it's still something to, I don't know if it's something to be concerned about, but certainly something to hope for the best for. Hopefully Brad Marchand fully fixed up and can come back and be the kind of player that we know he can be. A lot of people sent me this news on Twitter, pointed to his trade value, what have you. Obviously, if that was even a consideration, this would put a bit of a wrinkle into things, but his value would still obviously be high. Does it affect Patrice Bergeron's decision either way? Is Patrice thinking, all right, Brad's getting fixed up, so maybe mid-season he'll be back in full form, we can take another run at this? Or is he thinking, maybe the team isn't going to be as good to begin the season without him? Possible that they could stumble early in the playoff race. Is it worth coming back with this uncertainty? You could look at it either way, and ultimately it's his decision, and hopefully that will be made before the draft, free agency, so the Bruins can make some contingency plans. But as of right now, what we know is that Brad Marchand has had his hips fixed, and it's an expected recovery time of 6 months, meaning a target return or season debut of around Thanksgiving. Hopefully it's sooner than that, but that would be the 6-month range. So all the best to Brad in his recovery. Can't wait to see him back on the ice, despite what people may think. I still want him in black and gold, and he remains one of my all-time favorite Boston Bruins players. Now, BetOnline is the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs. Congrats to the Celtics for advancing to the NBA Finals. Also some Stanley Cup playoff odds, Major League Baseball scores, UFC fights, even some NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all sport wagering information from live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. The podcast is free and available on all podcast platforms, as well as on YouTube. For your next listen, I recommend the Locked On Now podcast. It's daily analysis of the previous night's games from our local experts. Now, the 2022 IIHF World Championship wrapped up over the weekend. There were two Bruins who were in contention for medals heading into the weekend. Finland, USA in one semifinal. Jeremy Swayman backstopping the Americans in that one. And then on the other side, you had Canada versus Czechia. David Pastrnak, and of course, former Bruin David Krejci. Unfortunately, neither Swayman nor Pastrnak/Krejci were able to advance to the finals. Finland defeating USA by a score of 4-3 in the semifinal, and then Canada defeating Czechia by a score of 6-1. So that set up a US versus Czechia bronze medal game in which the Czechs came out on top, thanks to a hat trick from David Pastrnak. The Czechs scored 6 third-period goals en route to an 8-4 comeback win over the U.S. in the bronze medal game. Czechia's first medal since 2012. Now, part of the decision in this game was factored by the fact that the Americans were playing with only 4 regular defensemen. It was Seth Jones, Nate Schmidt, Andrew Peeke, and Luke Hughes. The U.S. blue line had been decimated by injuries, COVID-19 issues, and a departure due to family issues. So they were down to 4 defensemen in both the semifinal game and the bronze medal game, which obviously will be difficult to handle for any team, no matter how good you might be. Jeremy Swayman, he did as best he could under those circumstances, and ultimately he made how many saves did he make in this game? I believe he made 25 saves in this one. Former Bruin Carson Kuhlman opened the scoring for Team USA. He added another goal late in the first. It was 2-2 at that point, and then it was all Czechia from there as they won by a score of 8-4 in this one. Oh, here's the American stats. So Jeremy Swayman, 32 shots against, 7 goals allowed. So not his finest performance, but again, playing behind 4 defensemen, that is going to put you back. For the tournament, he was still one of the top goaltenders. He finished with a save percentage of 90.97, a couple shutouts, a 2.23 goals against average. His numbers took a huge hit over the weekend. He was one of the top goalies in the tournament until that medal round, and unfortunately for him, the American defenseman hit that wall. But on the other side, David Pastrnak had an excellent tournament, earning the bronze medal and ending his hockey season on a very, very high note, finishing with the bronze medal, the first in 10 years for his home country. Pastrnak in fact, finished the tournament in a tie for the goals lead. Dylan Cousins and Pierre-Luc Dubois from a silver medal winning Team Canada squad finished with 7 goals each in 10 games. Pastrnak finished with 7 goals, but he only appeared in 7 games. So he gets the advantage there. He also had 3 assists for 10 total points. His line mate, Roman Travenka, finished the tournament with a best 17 points through 10 games, 3 more than Drake Batherson of Team Canada. So Finland wins the gold, defeating Canada in overtime. Our boy Pasta, along with David Krejci, earning the bronze medal. A tough end for Jeremy Swayman and co, but he played fantastic. And Bruins fans, Team USA, family, friends, should all be very proud of the effort that he put forth. I did want to add a quick note about David Krejci. A lot of people tweeting at the Bruins, bring him back. I just don't see that happening at this point. David Krejci made the decision to move home to Czechia to play for his hometown team. He's 36 years old. After 1 year back home, I can't see him uprooting his family once again and bringing them back. The whole point was to put down roots in his home country, for his kids to be immersed in the culture, to develop relationships with their grandparents. And it doesn't seem to make sense that he would, again, uproot his family to move back after just 1 year. Obviously, he's still a great player. He still could be a valuable piece of the Bruins roster, but I don't know. I'm choosing to respect his decision to move home, and I don't see him reversing course at this point. But you never know. All right, let's finish with some news and notes from around the NHL. A Game 7 going tonight in Carolina. Rangers, Hurricanes, 8 p.m. Eastern. See if the Hurricanes continue their home and away. It's very frustrating to watch this team continue to stumble on the road. They are, 6-6 in these playoffs. Everybody keeps talking about how good they are, but I don't see it. And I do think the Lightning will beat whoever they play in the next round, especially with Andrei Vasilevsky playing at such a high level. Western Conference begins tomorrow night. Edmonton, Colorado. Very excited to check out that series. McKinnon versus McDavid. It should be one for the ages for sure. Happy retirement to Jason Spezza. He announced the end of his career after 19 seasons to join the Toronto Maple Leafs front office. One of my favorite non-Bruins over the years. Having grown up in Ottawa, I always continue to watch the Senators, so he was one of my favorite players as well. So all the best to him. And what else is going on out there? I think that's pretty much it for news and notes from around the NHL. Not really anything with regards to our Bruins, apart from, of course, the Brad Marchand developments. Now, over the weekend, I watched all of season 4 of Stranger Things. Cannot recommend that highly enough, although there are some bits that may be disturbing to some. They kind of really highlight the horror aspect of 80s nostalgia in this one, but still very entertaining and one of my favorite shows. And my wife Lauren and I yesterday went to see Top Gun Maverick, which did not disappoint at all. I was very hyped about this movie, been looking forward to it. Uh, was ready to see it a couple years ago before it was constantly delayed by COVID. And I love the original movie, and this one hit all kinds of nostalgia points while also bringing a pretty compelling new story, and the action sequences were amazing. I teared up a couple of times, I'll admit it. And yeah, if you're looking for like the perfect summer movie, cannot recommend that one enough. Anyways, again, happy Memorial Day, everybody. I hope you are all doing well. Thank you for sticking with Locked On Boston Bruins through the post-playoff push here. We have an eye on the draft. We'll start looking at that. The Bruins don't have a first-round pick, but we'll start to look at some of their best second-round picks of all time and see what diamonds in the rough they might be able to pluck out of this year's draft. There's a lot of good players here in my town of Guelph who play for the Storm that could be available, including Danny Zhilkin, who I'm very, very high on. So yeah, happy Memorial Day, friends. Get out there, enjoy fireworks, time with family, an adult beverage or two, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.